Good Yantif. Along with Rabbi Friedman, Cantor Hyman, Rabbi Fuchs, and our president, Hank Bernstein, as well as Rabbi Kuhn, who will be with us soon, I warmly welcome you, the limited number in the sanctuary, and the many of you on the live stream. For all in person, a reminder to check that you are properly masked. And wherever you are, a reminder to spiritually unmask, as together we cherish these final sacred hours of Yom Kippur. The essence of the afternoon service lies in the two foundational texts that our sages chose for Yom Kippur afternoon. In Kedoshim, the Torah lists for us the kinds of behaviors to which we aspire, the kinds of behaviors that bring our relationships closer to potential holiness. In the book of Jonah, the story from our Hebrew Bible describes Jonah in his own kind of quarantine in the belly of the fish and imagines what happens when we behave badly and how we might find our way back. As we immerse in the reading of these sacred texts in these afternoon hours of Yom Kippur, we seek just that guidance. Please, God, show us the path to our best selves. And when we take the wrong turn, please show us the way back again. In preparation for our Torah service, we invite forward all with Torah honors: Stacy Spector, Ira Brind, David Warshall, Deborah Fellman, Raina Merchant, Fran Martin, Heshi Zinman, Aaron Ellman, Stephen Gibson, and Fred Strober, page 328. It shall come to pass in the fullness of time that the mountain of the house of God shall be established as the highest mountain and raised above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. Then many people shall say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the eternal, to the house of the God of Jacob." And they shall say, "Teach us your ways, that we may walk in your paths." We give thanks today for a Torah of life, the way of kindness, mercy, and truth. May compassion be our source of sustenance now, as in our people's past. May our souls withstand times of crisis, and our hearts the inclination to evil. May the covenant of Abraham and Sarah strengthen our will to do what is right. May the qualities of mercy and goodness, love and forgiveness flow through our lives. And let us be strong in a perilous world. Let us open our hearts to the path of Torah. Please rise.
ויהי בנשוא הארון ויאמר משה קום אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני לירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לאדוני איתי, ונרוממה שמו יחדיו.
Please be seated. Centered around the concept of holiness, our Torah portion for Yom Kippur afternoon, Kiddushim, contains some of the most inspiring calls to moral and ethical living. Juxtaposed to those verses, though, is also some of the most difficult and painful language in our Torah, especially for members of our LGBTQ plus community. Specifically, the prohibition that a man may not have sexual relations with another man. The new book, Mishkan Ge'ava, Where Pride Dwells, a groundbreaking collection of LGBTQ prayers, poems, liturgy, and rituals, responds to the challenge of how we can interpret this hurtful language in our sacred text. Rabbi Nikki de Blasi writes, "We are holy in our coming home and in our coming out, in living with honesty, integrity, and openness to diversity. We are holy in pursuing social justice and repair of the world, refusing to hate kinfolk in our heart and loving the stranger as ourself. We are holy in standing up against the giants who bully the disadvantaged. We are holy in leaving the corners of our field for the widow and the orphan and the stranger. We, Kol Adat B'nai Yisrael, the whole community of the people of Israel, are holy in our endeavors to do justice, to love chesed, to walk humbly with our Creator. Kidoshim nihiyeh ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. We will be holy, for the eternal our God implanted holiness within us." You can follow along with the Torah reading on page 338. We welcome forward Stacy Spector and Ira Brind for the honor of the Aliyah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל כל עדת בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם קדושים תהיו, כי קדוש אני אדוני אלוהיכם. איש עמו ואביו תיראו, ואת שבתותי תשמורו, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אל תפנו אל האלילים ואלוהי מסכה, לא תעשו לכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. וכי תזבחו זבח שלמים לאדוני לרצונכם תזבחו. ביום זבחכם יחל וממחרת, והנותר עד יום השלישי באש ישרף. ואם תאכול יחל ביום השלישי, בגולו לא ירצה. ואוכליו עוונו יישא, כי את קדש אדוני חילל, ונכרתה הנפש ההיא מעמיה. ובקוצרכם את קציר ארצכם, לא תלחת פאת שדך לקצור ולקט לצונך, לא תלקט, וכרמך לא תעולל, ופרת כרמך לא תלקט. לעני ולגר האזוב אתה אני אדוני אלוהיכם, לא תגנובו, ולא תכחשו ולא תשקרו איש בעמיתו, ולא תשאבו בשמי לשקר וחיללת את שם אלוהיך, אני אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu et Torah met, v'chayei olam nata b'chuhenu, Baruch atah Adonai, notem haTorah.
Amen.
Please rise. Pull it off a little bit. Yep. Nice.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. יאללה לי 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 יאללה לי 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 יאי לי 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 יאללה לי 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 יאי לי 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 לי.
Please be seated. At this point in our Yom Kippur journey, we are all Jonah. The task is too great, too daunting. We want simply to have a sip of water, to sit in the shade, to be undisturbed. And yet we know that Yom Kippur is coming to a close, as the gates will soon be shut, and there is some internal yearning within us, some unquenchable desire to achieve what we dream for ourselves, to rise to the challenges put before us. We read Jonah during the afternoon service because we are Jonah at this point in the day. We've been functioning in the realm of belief that our prayers will lead to certain outcomes. That is, after all, the purpose of Yom Kippur. And yet, deep within us is the desire to return home, to sleep in our beds. There's the doubt, the anger, the knowledge that we can never understand how this world works. And what is the point in trying? We read Jonah to be reminded that this tumultuous, contradictory, difficult space is, in fact, the space of prayer and possibility. Torah scholar Aviva Gottlieb Zornberg writes, "The enigmas that enrage and sadden Jonah are not riddles to be solved. They remain. God invites Jonah to bear them, even to deepen them, and to allow new perceptions to emerge unbidden. In a word, to stand and pray." And so we, Jonah-like, enter the synagogue as he entered the fish, and we stand in the dark, unseeing as we call out to our Creator. We do not know the answers to these riddles. Rather, we immerse ourselves and let them take us over. may follow along with the Haftarah blessing on page 342, and then the reading of Jonah on page 344 and following.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzah b'divreihem hane'omerim b'emes. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisroel amo u'mvi'ei ha'emes v'tzedek.
ויאמר אדוני דג גדול לבלוע את יונה, ויהי יונה במעי הדג 3 ימים ו3 לילות. ויתפלל יונה אל אדוני אלוהיו ממעי הדגה. ויאמר קראתי מצערה לי את אדוני ויענני מבטן שאול. שיבעתי שמעת קולי ותשליכני מצולה בלבב ימים ונהר יסובבני כל משבריך וגליך עלי עברו. ואני אמרתי נגרשתי מנגד עיניך אך אוסף להביט אל היכל קודשך. עפפוני מים עד נפש תהום יסובבני סוף חבוש לראשי. לקצווי הרים ירדתי הארץ בריתך בעדי לעולם. ותעל משחת חיי אדוני אלוהי. והתעטף עלי נפשי את אדוני זכרתי. ותבוא אליך תפילתי אל היכל קודשך. משמרי הבלי שב חסדם יעזובו. ואני בכל תודה אזבח לך אשר נדרתי אשלמה. ישועתה לאדוני. ויאמר אדוני לדג ויכה את יונה אל היבשה.
And the word of Adonai came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh, and proclaim against it, for their evil deeds have risen up before me. But Jonah got up to flee to Tarshish, away from the presence of Adonai. He went down to Jaffa and found there a ship heading for Tarshish. And he paid his fare and went down into it, to head with him to Tarshish, away from the presence of Adonai. But Adonai hurled a great wind upon the sea, a storm at sea so great that the ship was in danger of being shattered to pieces. And the sailors were frightened, cried out, each to his own god, and flung the ship's cargo into the sea to lighten their load. But Jonah had gone down into the hold, the lower deck of the vessel, and he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. And the captain approached him and said to him, "What are you doing, sound asleep? Get up, call to your God. Perhaps the God will be kind to us, and we will not perish." And they said, each man to his companion, "Let us cast lots, that we might know on whose account this evil event has come to us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. And they said to him, "Let us, you who have brought this evil upon us, what is your trade, and where have you come from? What is your country, and who are your people?" And he said to them, I am a Hebrew. I revere Adonai, God of heaven, who made sea and dry land. The men felt great fear, and they asked him, "What have you done?" Because the men knew he was fleeing from Adonai, for so he had told them. And they asked him, "What should we do to you to bring calm to the sea around us?" For the sea was growing more and more stormy. So he said to them, "Lift me up and hurl me into the sea, and the sea will calm down for you. For I know this great storm came upon you because of me." And the crew rowed hard to return to the dry land, but they could not do it, for the sea was raging more and more fiercely around them. And they called out to Adonai, saying, "Please, Adonai, please do not let us perish because of the life of this man, and do not hold us guilty of shedding innocent blood. For you, Adonai, that which you had desired, you have brought about." And they lifted Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea stopped raging. The men revered Adonai, great was their reverence, so they offered to Adonai a sacrifice and made vows.
And Adonai provided a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah prayed to Adonai, his God, from the belly of the fish, and he said, "I called to Adonai in my distress, and God answered me. I cried out from the belly of the netherworld, and you heard my voice. Into the depths you cast me, into the heart of the sea, and the floods engulfed me, and your billowing, breaking waves swept over me. And I thought to myself, I was banished from before your eyes. Will I ever again gaze upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me, the deep engulfed me, rushes wrapped around my head. I descended into the low point of the mountains. The gates of the earth closed upon me forever. Yet you, Adonai my God, raised up my life from the pit. When my life fainted away, I called Adonai to mind, and my prayer came to you, to your holy temple. They who cling to empty folly forsake their own welfare. But I, with a shout of thanksgiving, I will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will fulfill. Rescue comes from Adonai. Adonai commanded the fish, and it spewed Jonah out upon the dry land.
And the word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time. Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh, and call out to it the proclamation that I tell you. So Jonah got up and went to Nineveh according to the word of Adonai. Now Nineveh was a great city of God, 3 days' journey across. And Jonah started out and made his way into the city the distance of a 1-day walk. And he called out and said, 40 more days and Nineveh shall be overturned. The people of Nineveh trusted in God, and they proclaimed a fast, and they put on a sackcloth from the richest to the poorest. And word reached the king of Nineveh, and he got up from his throne, took off his robe, put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. And he cried out and said in Nineveh, by decree of the king and his nobles, no person or beast, of flock or herd, shall taste anything. They shall not graze, and they shall not drink water. They shall be covered with sackcloth, person and beast, and shall call out loudly to God. Let all turn back from their evil ways and from the violence which is in their hands. Who knows? God may turn and relent, turn back from the heat of anger, so that we do not perish. God saw what they did, how they were turning back from their evil ways, and God relented from the evil plan for them and did not carry it out.
But to Jonah this was a great evil, and it made him angry. So he prayed to Adonai, saying, Please, Adonai, is this not what I said when I was still in my own country? This is why I fled to Tarshish to begin with. For I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, endlessly patient and abounding in steadfast love, ready to repent of evil. And now, Adonai, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live." And Adonai said, "Is it good for you to be angry?" Then Jonah left the city, found a place east of the city, made himself a shelter there, and sat under it in the shade until he might see what would become of the city. And Adonai Elohim provided a gourd and made it rise up over Jonah to give shade for his head and rescue him from his evil situation. And Jonah rejoiced with great joy because of the gourd. But at dawn the next day, God provided a worm that attacked the gourd, and it withered. And as the sun rose, God provided an oppressive wind from the east, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head, making him faint. He begged for death, saying, "It is better for me to die than to live." Then God said to Jonah, "Are you good and angry about the gourd?" And he said, "I am good and angry to the point of death." Then Adonai said, "You pitied the gourd, which you neither worked for nor grew, which appeared overnight and perished overnight."
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, sur kol olamim, sadik b'kol hadaros, bo'el hanemon homer b'yoseh, handaber makayim, shekol devarav emes v'tzedek, al hatorah v'al avodah, v'al hanaviim, v'al yom hakippurim hazeh, shenosata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, L'mchila v'lislicha u'lekapara l'kavod u'lesiferet al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim loch u'mavorachim oscha yisbarach shemcha b'fi kol chai tomid le'olam va'ed u'dvarecha emes v'kayam la'ad Baruch atah Adonai melech mochel v'saleach la'avonos sechnu la'avonos amo beis Yisrael Umavor ash mosenu b'chol shona v'shona melech al kol ha'oretz makadesh Yisrael v'yom hakippurim.
In Yeshua. We turn to page 353 and rise as we return the Torah to the Ark.
Ki lekach tov natati lachem, Torati al ta'azovu.
Please be seated. Page 413. I do not want to beg forgiveness or seek absolution, a poor petitioner before the throne. If a power flows through the universe, if some force or higher consciousness infuses all of life, it does not notice my misdeeds. Said Elisha, the heretic rabbi, there is no justice, there is no judge, no one to hear my confession, no one to grant me mercy, no one to seal my fate. Still, the words of prayer are in my mouth. Still, the words I commit are on my mind. and still this yearning in my heart to make things right. Breathe free, be clean again. Page 418. We join together in the English. For all these sins, O our God, we ask forgiveness. The way we have wronged you deliberately and by mistake, and harm we have caused in your world through insincere promises. The ways we have wronged you by judging others unfairly, and harm we have caused in your world by making light of serious matters. The ways we have wronged you by giving into our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through condescension. The ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and harms we have caused in your world through the words of our mouths. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world by mistreating a friend or a neighbor. The ways we have wronged you by hating without cause, and harm we have caused in your world through hypocrisy. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. Page 420, together. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world through our thoughtlessness. The ways we have wronged you by profaning your name in public, and harm we have caused in your world through offensive speech. The ways we have wronged you through gossip and rumor, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. The ways we have wronged you through narrow-mindedness, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. The ways we have wronged you by betraying trust, and harm we have caused in your world through impulsive acts of malice. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. Turning to page 426, please rise. Avinu Malkeinu, as Joseph wept and opened a forgiving heart to his brothers, let our hearts be open to those who ask our forgiveness. Avinu Malkeinu, as the high priest entered the innermost shrine to atone, let our acts of teshuvah touch our innermost life. Avinu Malkeinu, as Jonah cried out to God, I thought I was driven away. Let us reach for the divine from the depths of our being. Avinu Malkeinu, as you said to Moses and Israel, you shall be holy, for I am holy. Let us affirm today. We shall pursue holiness in our everyday lives, revering mother and father, providing for the poor, rising before the aged, loving neighbor and stranger as ourselves. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice. Page 429.
Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu va'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu va'aneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu. Tzedaka v'chesed, aseh imanu tzedaka v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu va'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu va'aneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim.
Page 432.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו גויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Our Yisker service will begin shortly at 4:30 p.m. This concludes our afternoon service. Good Yontif.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu, ve'al olaleinu, ve'tapeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale tevel, ve'cherev ve'rav, me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale chol tzar.
To all of our guests, We are so glad to embrace you into our sacred community, connected virtually in a way we never could have imagined before. We are proud to be able to invest in this open tent and to provide open access to all, because we believe we are responsible to the greater community and to the future of the Jewish people. If you are in a position to support Congregation Rodef Shalom with a financial contribution, we would be so grateful. And we invite all who are looking to deepen your relationship with us to connect with our community. L'Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu, ve'alol aleinu, ve'tapeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale tever, ve'cherev ve'rav, me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale chol tzar, u'mastin, me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kotveinu Besefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Chodesh Aleinu, Chodesh Aleinu, Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu.